Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Crystal Rivera. I am the moderator for today's panel on the Latin America regulatory briefing. Today, we are going to be discussing the opportunities in the region, and we have 4 excellent panelists to help us understand what's happening. First, we have Vitoldo Hendrick, founding partner of iOnline IPS and Hendrick Abogados, Tomas Garciagota, partner MF Estudio, Gonzalo Perez, CEO of Apoesta Hotel, and Rodrigo Afanador, CEO of Samba. If you guys just want to introduce yourselves very quickly and give a background, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Vitoldo, why don't you go ahead and start?
Thank you, Crystal. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Vitoldo Hendrick Jr. I am a lawyer in Brazil. I run a law firm. I also am a partner of a payment company here based in Rio de Janeiro. So basically, I'm taking care of legal and payment stuff for several different industries. Today, we're going to speak specifically about gaming, and I hope you all enjoyed the panel with my colleagues. Thank you.
Tomas?
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Crystal. My name is Tomas Garciagota. I'm a lawyer, too. I'm not so lucky as we told you. I'm based in Buenos Aires. I wish I was in Rio. I am a partner at MF Studio Abogados. We are a boutique law firm focused exclusively on gaming and gambling, licensing, and all verticals. And we are servicing the clients, international and local clients here in Argentina.
Okay. Rodrigo?
Sorry. Good morning to everybody, and thank you, Crystal. I'm Rodrigo Afanador. I'm CEO for Samba.co, an online operation that operates sports betting and casino, basically. We are based in Bogota, Colombia. We have been on the regulated market for almost 4 years now, since Colombia started the first regulated operation in Latin America. And I hope that all this information that we'll exchange between each other is going to be very positive for all of us. Thank you.
Gonzalo? I think we're having trouble hearing.
Sorry. Thanks, Crystal.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Well, I am Gonzalo Perez, CEO of Apoesta Hotel. Apoesta Hotel is a Peruvian operator, one of the leading in the market. We have 400 shops around Peru. We also have an online operation. And, well, that's all from my side.
Great. So as we know, despite everything that's happening with COVID in the world globally, there's still been a lot of movement in the Latin American region to help progress online gambling regulation. Specifically, there's been a lot of movement in Brazil lately with the privatization process. Vitoldo, can you explain what that process is exactly and what you think the next steps are going to be from that?
Of course. So basically, what the government decided to do with the sports bet regulation is provide this activity the same path they did in the past with the LATAM. So basically, they are creating a program to privatize this activity, and they send it to BNDES, which is our bank for development of the country. They are going to create a group, hired some consultancy companies or consultant person to help them to find the best scenario for foreign companies or local companies that want to operate sports betting activity. The only problem with this is that they are going to act on the government level. So we are talking about decree, not laws itself. Laws need to come from the Congress. So what BNDES is going to do is show to the government what is the best environment, what are the best rules, best practices, what need to be changed, how they need to regulate the activity, everything that we need to be done to make sure that we are going to have a healthy environment in the future. We still have the same law that passed in 2018 that was an object of critics all over the globe. We have several times that I was with operators from Europe, operators from US, from LatAm, and it was a kind of consensus that legislation was not a warm welcome to the country. So we had high taxation, we had uncertain rules. Who do I need to pay this tax? Who I need to pay that one? What I'm going to do with advertising, marketing. So it's still open. So the legislation is definitely not good. So at that point, BNDES is going to show the government the direction we need to go. Then the government need to work on the Congress to make sure that the actual law is going to be changed in time to make sure that foreign operators want to come to the country. We definitely don't want a poor environment in terms of legislation, because as everybody knows, this is an open door for black market. So what we want, Crystal, is a strong and a modern legislation, and BNDES is going to help on this.
Thank you for that update. So I know you're mentioning BNDES has to get a consultant to help the government understand the best practices and process to get the best regulatory framework. But the law also needs to change. Is that a process that's going to happen consecutively or simultaneously?
Well, in some of these moving parts can work in parallel, but some of them, they need a previous step. So, for example, we can have the government working on a regulator board, on a regulator environment. This can work in parallel with the legislation changes, because this is going to happen at the Congress. But the point is, for this to happen, BNDES need to do their homework before it. So some of these moving parts can work together, but some of them, they depend on the previous step. So basically what we are seeing is that BNDES may need like 90 days to define who is going to be assessoring them. After this, they will send to the government their headlines, what need to be changed. Then the government needs to take some decision to start the boarding process. They need to organize these changes with the Congress. So this second phase, let me put phase as a non-accurate word, but for the purpose of the panel, the second phase can definitely work together in different environments, like the government and the legislators environment. But definitely we need to take a first step, which is BNDES, find their consultants, work with them. So we are talking about basically minimum 6 or 7, maybe 8 months for this first phase to get ready.
Seems like a long time. Do you have an expectation of when you think the launch will actually arrive in Brazil?
I remember when we had a chat last week, right? And this is a very tricky question. I am an optimist, right? I said in previous seminars that I see the first bets on a safe environment being placed like the end of next year. But some friends and also known person in the gambling environment, like Maguinho, like Luis Felipe Maia, they say that it may happen on the first semester of 2022. The reason why we are diverging by 6 months is not the fact that I'm optimist, because I don't want to say that they are pessimists, but I think that because it is now inside the Agenda Brazil, I see that all these moving parts I was referring to, they want to make it happen fast, because it's not a private agenda anymore. We're not talking about private interest anymore. On the first level, when we see it, when you see to this activity, this is an Agenda Brazil. And because of this, I see that all moving parts, they are going to do their best effort to make it happen fast. There's no sense to get something put in the Agenda Brazil and make it a long story. So ideally, this is a long story that needs to be shortened.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for that. We're lots to keep an eye on over there for sure. Tomas,
I'll do it.
yes. Tomas, Buenos Aires province and the city also passed online gambling laws at the end of 2018, along with Brazil. So that was an exciting movement also. The same way we've been waiting to hear what's been going on in the province and the city. Could you catch us up a little bit as to where those two jurisdictions are in the process?
Yeah, sure. So let's start first with the province of Buenos Aires. The province of Buenos Aires, they passed the legislation later on January 2019, and unlike Brazil, we had a tender. We had 14 applicants that filed business proposals, and up to seven licenses to be awarded by the authorities. What we have so far is a short list of 7 potential winners. This information was not made public officially by any of the authorities at the province of Buenos Aires, but was disclosed in the press. So everyone knows who are the companies on the short list. What we had here is something that's somehow different. Originally, the framework was intended for international operators to participate alone, and then when the bill was discussed at the legislature, they amended this provision and they incorporated an obligation to form a mandatory joint venture with local operators, awarding them at least a 15% of the participation in the proceeds of the joint venture. So that's the situation. I mean, if you have a look at the companies that filed the business proposals, you could consider the process a success because all major operators, except 1 or 2, filed the applications. But we are still waiting. Depending on who you ask, you will get a different answer on the estimated time when the licenses will be awarded. I'd rather not. I really don't know what will happen because the situation is very complicated in the city of Buenos Aires. I mentioned earlier. I don't see gaming or finishing this process on top of the agenda at the time. The city of Buenos Aires, on the other hand, it has a different approach. The requirements to participate are lower. I mean, from a financial perspective, no mandatory partnership is required. And the process is currently ongoing. We have, I think, 4 or 5 companies that have already paid the administrative fee to be able to file a proposal. And unlike the city, the province of Buenos Aires as well, what we have in the city of Buenos Aires is that the government needs to have at least 3 applications that are okay to launch, to give a go live date and have the operators start running their business. And as was said, this is expected to happen by the end of this year. Now, other jurisdictions that are not as popular or as relevant as the city of Buenos Aires and the province of Buenos Aires in terms of population, they have also launched regulatory process as well. And what we are seeing now is that since the city of Buenos Aires and the province of Buenos Aires are running a bit behind the schedule, other jurisdictions are catching up with different approaches. So now an interesting question is, what will happen if another jurisdiction goes live before the city of Buenos Aires or the province of Buenos Aires? Will it have an impact or not in these 2 major districts?
Definitely. I feel like so Argentina is similar in the U.S. in that it's federally based, so the provinces and the jurisdictions have their own authority to come and regulate online gambling. What are the kind of setups that you're seeing? So you have the province that requires a joint venture, you have the city that's open licensing. What are some of the other provinces looking at?
Well, it depends on the jurisdictions that you see. What you see in Argentina is that almost every jurisdiction, not considering the city of Buenos Aires and the province of Buenos Aires that are special cases, but other jurisdictions, they do have established land-based operators. So usually the regulatory process goes somehow around the land-based operators. You might not see a tender, but you will see an authorization to increase the gambling offering to the online, for instance, within a concession given to a land-based operator. Other jurisdictions have adopted or intend to adopt a more open approach and will call for tenders, but they are waiting to see what's the result of the province of Buenos Aires and the city of Buenos Aires. You have additional complications because some jurisdictions do not allow the privatization of gaming or gambling. So authorities needed to come up with different figures that would allow the participation of international companies in the offering of online gaming products without calling them operators. I think it's pretty interesting. We have to wait and see how, if one system will prevail over the others, or we'll have a mixture of systems. I hope. I mean, I'm not speaking on my interest as a lawyer. On my interest as a lawyer, I would rather benefit from conflict. But for the sake of the industry, I think it would be advisable that a similar approach is adopted nationwide, and it makes things that will make things easier to operators. I mean, you cannot call an operator a betting shop in one jurisdiction, operator in another, claim that his federal taxation will be 30% at one state and 41.1% at a different state. I mean, there are things that need to be arranged between the jurisdictions.
Yes, the authority of jurisdictions in the country makes it a lot more complicated because you have crossing lines. And I know that Argentina's already experienced some of those lawsuits and between the jurisdictions, between the provinces of an online gaming operator operating within another province.
Yeah.
Do you see that being?
I think that a lesson was learned from that, and all parties involved are trying to avoid this situation from repeating. I mean, we had the situation here was pretty much the same that happened in the States with a case law of the companies operating with an Antigua license. I don't recall the name of it's a famous case, and we had a similar case here with the same arguments. So basically, I mean, they are trying to avoid this. The city of Buenos Aires at least is trying to get all other jurisdictions enter into agreements with them so that they can expand their approach throughout the country. That's a sensible approach. I mean, you have agreements between the jurisdictions, and then you have a framework based on agreements, and that's a way to coordinate the regulatory competence. But I mean, there's a long way to go still. I mean, the city of Buenos Aires needs to complete the process. Operators need to go live, and then we have to see what's the reaction of the other jurisdictions and whether they will be willing to enter into agreements with the city of Buenos Aires.
Yep, just another long wait game, I guess.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think, or I hope for the best, that city of Buenos Aires went to ICE London two years in a row with the same chart, with a schedule, and they were always launching at the end of the year. I hope this time the end of the year is the end of 2020, and we can start 2021 with at least 3 operators.
That would be great. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that also. Gonzalo, Peru has been looking to introduce legislation for quite some time, and the regulators even given presentations on what they have outlined is going to be. What do you think is the process there? Do you foresee that coming soon? I know Peru's having a very tough time right now with COVID. If you want to touch on that also, why don't you give us an update on that?
Oh, yes. I don't have as much information as Witoldo and Thomas have, because I would say that things are almost the same since 2 years ago, where the draft of sports betting or online gaming bill was presented to the Congress. So in these 2 years, there has been a lot of discussions, between the regulator and the operators, but not in the Congress. We have been discussing in our field. And as we told to explain, in Peru is the same. We, here the Congress has to pass the bill. It's not the government. So here we have this situation where the regulator knows how things are going to be or how things should be, but he doesn't have the power to issue the bill. So it has to be by the Congress. And in the Congress, there is like a strange situation this year. It's a short Congress, and there is an election nearby. So these Congress are making laws, very popular laws, for the people, but those popular laws are not always the best for the economy. So if you ask me, I will say, okay, I prefer this Congress not to discuss this law, because we don't know what will be the result of that. But as a difference from Brazil and from Argentina, sports betting here or online gaming is allowed. We don't have a specific regulation, but it's allowed. So you can see a new operator from different sizes every month here. You can see the advertisement in the Peruvian league matches. It's very aggressive. So I will say that that's a good thing, because we have an industry here in Peru that it's very powerful, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to discuss with the new Congress the opportunity for this law.
We had spoken about previously that Apoesta Total was pre-COVID was 90% land-based and about 10% online, and then that's had to shift as things have happened. Could you explain the process of kind of making that shift? And also, what do you think about Peru? Is it more land-based operation that favorable to players? Do you think that's going to hinder any kind of online gambling regulation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as you say, we were 90% retail and 10% online. And with the lockdown in March 16, we were forced to move to the online business. At the beginning, there were there was two processes going on. The first one is that almost every sport shut down, so there was almost nothing to bet on. And the second one was that there was a lot of, there was not a clear idea what was going to happen with the economy for the next month. So April was very bad for us. But beginning May, things start to change. At the end of May, the Bundesliga started. So it was very good. And June, July, the next month was very good for us. We'll recover fully. And I will say that we are better right now than pre-COVID. It was not an easy process, because, the payment methods here are like a wall for most of our customers. They don't have a bank account, they don't have credit cards. They used to have our shops to top up their accounts, but it was not as good as it was. Going to the question I think that if Peruvian gamblers are most online or retail, since we don't have specific numbers or we don't have official numbers, that's a tricky question. It's funny because we tend to think that we are mostly retail, but as we were talking with Rodrigo last time, the first company that established here in Peru were online. So, and they're quite big right now. So I will say now in my experience and now looking at the experience that we have with the online retail, right now we have 50-50 share participation. So I will say that right now I will think that Peruvian market, it's almost the same, 50-50.
Great. Well, I guess we still have things to watch out for, and hopefully the new Congress comes in and is more appealing to the gambling industry and also just favorable for the country in general. Rodrigo, Colombia is obviously in a different situation because it's been regulated for almost 4 years now, the online gambling. How is the market today, and what do you think are some of the highlights of why it's been so successful?
Well, I think that, as you say, the market was regulated almost 4 years ago, and it kind of included all the experience of many European countries, particularly Spain, and so all the regulation was structured in a way that it was safe for consumers, and it provided many guarantees in terms of support of the companies that were operating. Nevertheless, we still have a big black market going on here. Many operators from other countries coming into Colombia in not a legal way, and it has been hard to control. The market today is operated by at least 14 companies that are active post-COVID. 2 of them are very, very strong, and they are basically based on shops, on land-based shops, because their previous experience and processes had them have this big network of operation. In our particular case, we are the opposite of what you mentioned originally for Gonzalo. We are 90% online and 10% land-based. And it has been going well for all of the companies, nevertheless, if they are land-based or online. I believe that sports betting was a big thing for Colombia. The idea of having people openly bet on sports events was something new, and it did not have the taboo of casinos, which has a lot of social rejection still in many very conservative parts of our society. Sports betting was more acceptable. So when it came openly and we had all this huge amount of investment in media and all kinds of marketing strategies, it was a big surprise, and it was a big impact in Colombia, which is a 50 million people market. So I think the union of all these factors made it a very good success that's still under construction anyway. We still are adjusting things. The regulator is adjusting issues. We are looking into something that I believe we mentioned previously, that is related to the restrictions on media that we see that are coming based on what European countries are doing. So we are a very young market, nevertheless, and we're still learning about our own experience. But yes, successful, definitely.
What do you think has added to that? So Corjuegos is the regulator in Colombia, has a very open communication with its operators, it seems, and they're constantly trying to keep up with the times, make sure it's an attractive market. What is it that you look for when launching online? I know Zamba is part European with its joint venture, what was attractive to them and to make this online brand in Colombia?
I think the combination in our case, Samba is, as you say, a joint venture between a Belgian company called Gaming One and Vika Group, our land-based operation here in Colombia, which both companies have been land-based operations operating casinos for 30 years. And it was a coincidence that our structures were very similar in size and in experience in the land-based operation. So I think for their case, it was interesting to see a market with a very good size. Colombia is probably the fourth economy in Latin America, third or fourth economy right now, 50 million people, and very, very interested in sports. I mean, like, Latin America, soccer is a big thing. But for example, in the Colombian Caribbean, baseball is a big issue. NBA is very popular in Colombia. Tennis is very popular in Colombia. Cycling is very popular. So all that interest in sports for a market of that size was definitely one of the factors that made our partners have an interest in Colombia. And the fact that it was regulated and it was going to be the first LatAm regulated market would allow both of us to gain experience to, in the future, go into new markets in Latin America. And I think that's one of the powerful things about this joint venture, and many joint ventures that are probably operating in Colombia and are hoping to operate in markets like Peru, Brazil, and Argentina.
Great. When we all discussed last week about what was going to be discussed on the panel, we discussed about the issue of trust for the players in these regions, in these countries, and the payment systems. And it was quite interesting to hear some of the comparisons and contrasts between Peru, Colombia, Argentina, and Brazil, and how this is managed. Do you guys want to discuss that a little bit? Vitoldo, you actually discussed how Brazil has a payment regulation that requires more of an open network with the operators. So why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Okay. The reason I brought this specific subject with you, Crystal, is that I see some differences between what is happening here in Brazil and what I saw in Colombia. It doesn't mean that it's right what I'm going to say about Colombia. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. But we built a company in Colombia, and some of the prospects, the merchant that we wanted boarded there, they were facing problems to have bank accounts. So basically, we had the private sector banks saying, no, I am not interested in your bank account at that moment in the past when I saw that. Here in Brazil, I don't see this happening mainly for two reasons. Number one, our payment system says that you are not allowed to create any kind of discrimination. So if you have a legal activity, basically they cannot say that, no, you are not allowed to process, you are not allowed to have a bank account. On the other hand, we need to understand that private banks, they have the right to say, look, this activity, I don't want to manage this kind of activity because, in my opinion, it may bring some brand damage to my institution. That's okay. But on the other hand, we have public banks like Caixa, like Banco do Brasil. So for these two banks, at least, I'm sure that they're not allowed to say, I don't want your activity. I don't want to provide you a bank account because I don't have commercial interest in your activity, because they are a long arm of the government. And remember that gambling now is in the Agenda Brazil. So it makes no sense for the government to give to the sector the Agenda Brazil, a fast track to everything, and with the other hand, say, no, look, I don't want to have your bank account. So I don't see this happening here. On the other hand, I had a privilege to speak in a special commission at our National Congress for cryptocurrency regulation. And at that time, I met a lot of people on the crypto environment. One thing that lots of operators said is that, look, when the bank find out that I am dealing with cryptocurrency, not as a person, but as a kind of wallet or an exchange, something like this, they shut down my bank account. So I met one guy, for example, he had some million reais in his bank account that it was not his money, but the bank account was frozen because the bank found out that he was operating crypto on behalf of third parties. And we definitely don't see that happening with gambling. So when you go to any of those big websites for sports betting, for gambling, and you search, you're going to see lots of payment operators offering, look, you can go to Banco do Brasil, you can go to Itaú, so they offer bank account. And what I see is that the banks, they are not chasing this kind of companies, they are not chasing this kind of operators. There are some people that they created a kind of pool of bets, and they are betting on behalf of third parties, like if it was an investment fund. So they collect money from other people, they place bets because they study the soccer team, a specific soccer team. They're making money out of it, and they're paying back the investment to those people. So, and I don't see this kind of person, company, or activity being chased by banks as I saw with the crypto. So in my opinion, crypto is still something that is very dark for the payment environment. And gambling, we are being educated. We had it as a dark environment for 70 plus years. But because I see that the country is so arms wide open for this activity, we want to embrace it, that I don't see that we are going to have this kind of problem, at least regarding to payments.
Definitely. Rodrigo, did you have something to add to that? I thought you raised your hand.
Yes, Crystal. Listening to Witoldo, we had a similar situation with banking here, especially when we started the online business. Most operators had a big resistance from banks. Obviously, in Colombia, the issue of money laundering from drugs is a big issue all the time. So banks have very strict compliance systems, and so do we. Most casino and online casino operations have robust compliance systems because to regulation. And still, we had a big rejection for the online operations from the banking system. So, I mean, in our case, we had been having banking relationships for 30 years already with the biggest banks in Colombia. And still, when we opened our online operation, it was a big issue. So we promoted for the government to ask the one public bank that we have owned by government, which is Banco Agrario, to do what they had to in the terms of what Witoldo described. They should open accounts for companies that are legally established, and the government issued legislation saying so, giving the orders to this bank to open accounts for legally established online companies. And they didn't. And they found all kinds of excuses not to open accounts, not based on the express mandatory order from the government, but based on all kinds of little document issues and fiction. And this happened 3 years ago, and still we have not been able. Not our case. We don't need to go to Banco Agrario at this point, but many operators do, and they have not been able to open yet, despite of the order given by the government. So it is an uphill threat for most casino companies in Colombia, and it has been then for a while. So I'm not very optimistic on how the bank will react on new operations coming to them. And as Witoldo said, the crypto is also associated to gambling in this country for some reason. So the first thing that compliance officers from banks ask you is if you are in the crypto market as well, because that would be like a double restriction. So we really have that in our reality. I just wanted to share that.
No, it's very interesting.
Crystal. Witoldo here. Can I break the protocol and add something to what Rodrigo said?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so get rid of the protocol. Rodrigo, but because the gambling is in the Agenda Brazil, and private banks, they work under an authorization model from the government. If I was the government or an authority regarding on the banking space, what I would say is, look, I authorize you, private bank, to work. I have this on the Agenda Brazil. If you don't help me to put this in the Agenda Brazil, I understand that you are creating a kind of boycott to something that is important to the country. And this is the top-down decision that you just mentioned, that, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense to have this kind of conversation, put everybody in a round table and say, look, this is important to the country. I need your help, and let me remind you that you are working on an authorization model. But that's me speaking.
We're still working on it, Witoldo. Thank you.
Tomas, Gonzalo, do you guys have anything to add on this topic?
I think Witoldo is very optimistic. I wish a government could sit down the banks on a round table and say, I will revoke your authorization to operate if you don't open an account to a gaming operator. But nevertheless, I mean, it would be a good thing to see. What I have two things to mention. I mean, in connection to crypto, this discussion is, we are not having it in Argentina, at least in the city of Buenos Aires or the province of Buenos Aires, because all bets will need to be placed and paid in Argentine pesos. So we don't have a negative connotation towards, or a negative bias towards crypto here. Actually, it's allowed, and the central bank has said you're good to, everyone can operate with crypto, that's not a problem. And actually, it's a good way, or it's becoming more and more popular as a payment method, taking into consideration the restrictions to access the foreign exchange market that were put in place by the government. The other thing that we have here, I mean, it's similar to what Rodrigo mentioned. I mean, the city of Buenos Aires and the province of Buenos Aires both have public banks. The Banco Provincia de Buenos Aires, which is the eldest banking institution in Argentina, it's prior to the Constitution. So it's actually, they don't abide to any banking regulations. They can do whatever they want if they wanted to, and they are the official banking institution and the only one through which gambling transactions can take place. So basically, the situation is the opposite. I mean, the bank is obligated to open accounts to gambling operators. And we have the same situation in the city of Buenos Aires with the Banco Ciudad. And as I mentioned last week, I mean, the situation is the opposite. Now you actually have the emails from the bank officers asking you for documents to open bank accounts. It's not the other way around. Private banks did operate with some gaming operators in the past. I mean, you mentioned the previous situation with the licenses back in 2008. those companies were operating through private banks, but so far they have been very reluctant to reopen accounts to the gambling industry.
In Peru, there's a lot of stories about this topic. The first one is that one of the leaders of the sports betting operators, which is Interlot del Peru, it's owned by an economic group that also owns a bank. So that helps, the industry to clean the image of our image. In our case, we don't work with that bank. We work with a Spanish bank. We have been in the market not only as a sport betting, but also as a casino operator, land-based casino, for about 35 years. So we have a full story with banks. They don't lend us money. They don't make that kind of operation with us. But we can still open bank accounts. We can pay our banks in their bank accounts. And there is also this new group of operators that I talked with them, and they said to me, well, I'm trying to open an account in the bank that is the same of the group, of the Interlot del Peru, and they don't allow me to do that. So it's quite complicated. The industry doesn't have a very good image for the banking system, even though the banking system has also they have made not many good things in the past, but we are like the nightmare for them. On the top of that, the government made this program to support companies for the COVID-19, and they exclude all the operators of all the land-based casino operators. They say, they put in the bill, hey, we can support every company except casino companies. So even though those casinos are regulated, they have the license, but there's this shadow over this industry that we need to fight, and we need to work to clean and to have a better image.
Yeah, so it can make a very complicated situation because obviously online gambling requires funding and processing of payments. So I just want to remind the audience that you're able to submit Q&As. We actually got one, and it kind of leads into the other question I had. Considering this is SBC Barcelona, and given what's happening in Spain right now with their process of regulating advertising for online gambling operators, I'll just open it up to all of you, kind of give your thoughts on that. Where do you think that should come in? Do you think advertising regulation and restrictions for consumer protections should be more robust in the beginning? I know it's a very fine line to balance trying to start a regulated market, but also protecting consumers and not overstepping those boundaries. What do you guys think about this? Anybody? We'll pass protocol.
Okay, in my case, I think we should address it. We should address the issue now, because whatever comes from Europe will come here for sure. Because not because just it comes from Europe, but because it has a base of studies and a base of perceptions among the public that believe that in the case of Colombia, the amount of advertisement that has come from sport betting is amazing, and many sectors of society see it as an invitation for very young people to participate, or very old people to participate, which are two groups that they are trying to protect. So I think we should address it. I was sharing with some of you a few days ago the fact that, and I'm sure that in most countries it's the same. In a soccer game, you can see almost all the 14 or 15 operators in Colombia have advertisements during the match 2 or 3 times, which is it's even confusing for the consumer to see so many brands saying similar things with similar names. So yes, I think we should address it and bring with the government ideas that protect consumers and allow us to work on advertisement in a responsible way.
Yeah, the same thing is going on in Peru. You can see in the Peruvian League matches a lot of advertisement. It's a complicated question because I believe in a free market. I think for me, we don't have to be regulated. We're an industry that is regulated because we have a lot of issues with the customers and with based on a bad image that we have as an industry. But you can see, as Rodrigo said, a lot of advertisement in the Peruvian League matches, and it could be very aggressive. And if we don't, as an industry, we don't auto-regulate ourselves or regulate ourselves, sometimes it will come back to us. Is it going in Spain and is it going in Italy? But it's a hard question, because everyone should be okay with that regulation or our own regulation. So yeah, I think that for that reason is why regulation is good. I think that regulation should address that, but not as hard as it is in Spain right now.
I think I agree with Rodrigo and with Gonzalo. I mean, from my personal perspective, I think self-regulation is much better than having an aggressive approach and then facing how that returns, as it has happened in Spain or Italy. I mean, the city of Buenos Aires has adopted a pretty straightforward approach towards advertising and responsible gaming, and I think when markets are opening, it's good if operators can get together and on a set of rules to self-regulate certain key issues that will allow them thrive eventually without facing any backlash from the authorities.
Definitely. Just quickly, do you, Vitoldo and Tomas, you see that there's a lot of ramping up for advertising already. Do you think that's going to hinder the licensing process in Brazil or Buenos Aires province or city for these operators that are starting to go ahead?
Mm-hmm. Crystal, what I see here is that this boom of sports betting sponsorship, especially in soccer clubs or football clubs. I think this is definitely one of the things that that caused a good impression on the government, that they needed to put that in the agenda Brazil, because it shows how powerful and how can it be monetized, right? And because it's already happening, so basically everybody's monetizing, but the government, but the country. So I think that this ramp up of sponsorship was very important to show the government that they had to take this decision as faster as they could. I have 2 kids, 7-year-old, 4-year-old. So of course I want to protect them, protect their friends, protect their generation from abusive advertising. That's no doubt about it. But if we look at it as we had in the past with cigars advertising on Formula One, for example, that they had to take out the Marlboro John Player Special, all those brands from the cars. If we had this kind of decision for the country in terms of advertising, what we are going to see is that some of the biggest football clubs in the country, they will be with no money left. In fact, this advertising, they came to occupy a space that Caixa and Banco do Brasil, they left open because they used to sponsor sport a lot. I said that if you imagine that gambling advertising is not allowed before 9 p.m., it means that none of the soccer matches, the football matches, they will be sponsored. So who is going to put money in a place where you cannot show, right? I think that we need to find a midterm that can equalize the protection for kids, the protection for under 18 people, with the appropriate way to monetize, because this is what is going to bring money, not only in sponsorship, but also with taxation that this company will live in country. I see that we have 5 minutes, so I'll give the word back to you, Crystal, so you can manage this last 5 minutes.
Great. We actually had a question on Brazil. Do you think that Brazil's municipal elections will impact the regulatory agenda?
No, I don't see that happening. Of course, things get slower when we are talking about elections here. Even with the election for 5,000 cities, that's what we are going to have at the end of this year. So Congress, they usually go back to their cities to introduce their best candidates. It's slower the process, of course. But let's remember that in this first phase, we are talking about something that will happen inside the government, inside BNDES. So I don't see elections affecting this. This is very inside the governmental level. I don't see legislators losing time with losing, in the good sense of word, with elections and not doing their job at the Congress. I don't see that happening. If we take longer and this legislation comes to change in 2022, then it's going to be a problem, because we are going to face presidential elections, federal congressman elections, senator elections. This is going to be a problem. But for now, in this very first moment, I don't see that happening.
Okay. We also had another question about payments again, just very quickly. How about the players? Are they able to deposit and withdraw without restrictions in your various countries? Rodrigo, since you maybe start with you.
Sure. In Colombia, generally, yes. The regulation provides a limit in the number of withdrawals that people can do in a single day. That I believe it's like 3 withdrawals, the max. They can deposit or withdraw any amount, but after a certain amount, we have to make a report to authorities. Although it's not restricted, just make the report. That's like the general case.
Okay. And Gonzalo, are players able to?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, in general, we have no restrictions in Peru. The restrictions are set by the operators. And the same case as in Rodrigo explained, if you surpass some limit, you should inform the authorities, but it's just an information. It's not like there is a prohibition if you withdraw more than, I don't know, $10,000 per day. It's not like a prohibition. It's just to inform. In general, there is no restrictions from the government point of view.
Great. Well, we are at the 1 minute mark. I'm not sure if you have any parting thoughts. You guys have been excellent. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for the audience for their questions.
I just wanted to say something, because I think it's important, after listening to all these gentlemen, very knowledgeable from different countries, and sharing with you, Crystal. Latin America is very diverse, regardless of what people think. People are used to seeing us as one big similar society, and we're not. Like Brazil is a different world, definitely. They have like very different forms of seeing the world, and so is Argentina, and so is Peru. So when you come to do business here, you have to have cultural competency, and that is very important for whoever is coming down to our countries to make business. They are very welcome. but be careful with understanding the cultures, the different subcultures before you do business, or you might have a big crash. That's my recommendation I wanted to share. Thank you.
Excellent point. Thank you.
I am with you, Rodrigo. I think the same. And especially in Brazil, we have several different countries inside the same country. So different cultures in the northeast, in the north, in the south. If you want to come to Brazil and you need payment, find some local that understand payment. If you want to advertise, find some local that understand advertise. If you need lawyer, find a local that understand the industry. So I'm totally with you. I want to say thank you to the whole event. Crystal, thanks for your moderation. My colleagues on the panel, thank you very much for your thoughts, and hope to see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Me too. I agree. Thank you, everyone. It was very, very pleasant to participate with you in this panel.
Guys.